Well, welcome and thank you so much for being here with us for another episode of GPS for Your Business. This episode, we're going to talk about sales effectiveness. I'm Dr. Randi Ross, and along with your coach for today's episode, Mike Nannini. Let me tell you a little bit about Mike Nannini in case you don't know Mike. Mike is an award-winning certified business coach. He is the owner of FocalPoint Business Performance of Central New Jersey. He brings more than 2 decades of executive management experience to the table. He brings a clear, easy to understand approach that's founded in the FocalPoint proven systems. And Mike believes very strongly that systems run businesses and people run those systems. So without any further ado, let's bring your coach on for today, Mike Nannini.
Hi, Randy. Hi, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to spend a few minutes with us today.
All right, well, we're going to jump right into sales effectiveness. And let me just mention, for those of you that might be watching this as the first of the episodes you've been with us, we talked on a previous episode about value proposition, and that ties into sales effectiveness. So you might want to go back and review that if you haven't watched it. But otherwise, we are going to jump right in. And Mike is going to actually explain to us what is sales and can you define that? And I think, Mike, something else that's important to point out, and then I'll just kind of let you run with this, is, coming from a healthcare background, and hi, everyone, I know you didn't get to see me a minute ago because my screen share was on. Sometimes when you say sales to certain industries, they're like, no, I'm not in sales. And they actually almost take offense to it. So I think we need to kind of address that from the beginning. And also, everyone, I want you to understand that because there are people from many different industries that are watching these episodes, that their terminology is interchangeable. Where we use business, it can apply to companies or practice, as well as clients can be customers, patients, or anything else that applies to your particular industry. So don't feel that this isn't for you if we just happen to be using a terminology that isn't something that you frequently use. All right, Mike, I'm going to let you jump right in here.
Okay, so what is sales? It's actually easy to define. So in today's day and age, sales is everything that you say, do, and want when you're talking to a client or a potential client. Most importantly, it's not just you. If you have employees, it's everything that your team does as well. People have become so focused on having good experiences in places they do business. The consumer has become more critical than ever. And frankly, with the popularity of social media, which Randy can tell you a little bit about, it's really caused opinions to travel faster and wider than ever before. So making sure you are building relationships has never been more critical.
You're preaching to the choir on that one. That's what we always talk about, relationship marketing. And you said it on previous episodes, if people like you, they listen to you. If they trust you, they want to do business with you. And I think sales it's a difficult thing for a lot of people. So let's kind of backtrack a little bit and talk about, what's changed in sales. We know business has evolved a lot, obviously, with all the technology that's available. And you actually just mentioned, a part of it. But let's talk about how sales has really changed over the years.
Yeah, so hopefully you caught how I ended the last response with building relationships. And Randy, I know you sort of piled on there, so hopefully we've made our point. But that's really the biggest change in sales. Sales used to be a dirty word, and to some people it still is. That's largely because of how people view pushy salespeople and their experience with them. There's still some of them out there, but the reality is the best way to build a profitable long-term client base, customer base, or patient base is to build relationships with them.
And what do you think are often the biggest obstacles? You talk about building relationships, and this actually ties into previous episodes that we did, even when we go back to metrics. How many repeat clients, customers, patients do you have? So understanding this process that we're delivering to you, it really is a bunch of layers that all fit together like a puzzle. But talk about what you think the obstacles are and a general idea of what most business owners face when it comes to sales in today's market.
Yeah, 95% of the time, small business owners don't have a sales process. They don't see themselves as salespeople. They don't have a process in place for the folks that do their sales. And they meet someone and say whatever comes to mind first. They try to tell everyone how great their product or service is without knowing what's important to that potential client or customer or patient. You know, I remember walking into a furniture store, and the furniture store folks are very, very nice people. But as soon as I walked in, a salesman approached and went right into telling me how great the couch by the front door was. It has extra cushy springs. It's got stain resistant fabric. That'll be great for the kids. It's got solid wood legs, and on and on and on and on and on. It was a beautiful couch, but I didn't buy it. Why didn't I buy it? Well, I was there to buy a bedroom set, not a couch. So a few basic questions that could have been asked when I first walked in around what I was in the market for, what was important to me, did I have a budget? And it really would have started that foundation of building a relationship with me that ended in a sale. So instead, I looked at the bedroom furniture alone. I left without buying anything, and I never went back. So that's an extreme example, but I see similar exchanges all the time between businesses and the people they want to do business with. Having a good go-to set of questions to ask when you meet someone is key to success in relationship building. It's preparation, 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 knowing your audience and knowing what questions to ask.
Well, in my house, my daughter could tell you that my favorite line is preparation meets opportunities. I probably say it so often that she like almost throws up a little bit every time I say it. But, you know, I think that what's really important, what you're saying, and this is, you know, something in some of the programs that we use too, that's so key, is like you said, it's asking the right questions. And sometimes, and I think you would agree, Mike, sometimes it takes a little while in this sales process to almost figure out what those right questions are. You know, and I think the second part of that I want you to comment on is after you ask the question, you actually have to listen to the answers.
Yeah.
It's not just knowing the right questions. And one of the things that I always tell people is if you really listen, what you're going to do is you're going to find out exactly where your product or your service fits into a need that they're telling you that they have. So if you could talk about that as it applies to sales for a second.
Yeah, sure. So a couple of things. One is that studies have shown that the most successful salespeople spend about 20% of their conversations talking, right? The other 80% is exactly what you just said, Randy. It's listening. So having what you may have heard of described as open-ended questions, right? And so what's an open-ended question? An open-ended question is something that I ask you that you really can't answer yes or no. And why is that? It's because people like to talk about themselves, especially small business owners. So the whole purpose is to have some of those questions, and you don't need a lot of them. Frankly, if you have 4 or 5 good ones, you can get somebody to talk for 45 minutes to an hour about their business. But asking those questions and then listening to what they say and knowing how to transition from what they're saying into the next thing that you want to cover. There's a couple of old cliches. I'll give you 2 of them. One is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And again, it's overused, so forgive me, but it works for this because the best way for people to know that you care is to ask them a bunch of questions, understand what's important to them, and take a genuine interest in what it is they're doing and go from there. So that's definitely one piece of it. The second piece of it is unless you have a process for selling, you are at the mercy of the prospect or the person that you're selling to process for buying. So if you think about it from that standpoint, it's a control thing to some extent, but which would you rather be? Would you rather be someone that's trying to grow your business and improve your sales or whatever the case may be and have a clearly defined process for doing that? Or would you rather kind of take a shotgun approach and say whatever you think is right at the moment and be at the person that you're talking to's mercy about how they want to interact with you? So it's much better to be the first of the 2 examples. So I think that's a good way to understand sort of sales and sales process and why it's so important that you have them.
Mike, is that the same thing as when people talk about like framing? So you're the one in control of the process. Is that the same thing for sales? It's where you're creating the dynamic, the situation, the interaction. So when you're more in control, your success rate goes up.
Yeah, it does. Framing is something that happens more in the beginning of a conversation, like, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Jones, here's what I'd like to cover today. We're going to talk about these things, and then at the end, we're going to decide whether or not we have enough commonalities for us to move forward and have another conversation, or decide that we're going to do business together or not. And again, that applies depending on what type of sales role that you're in. But it's similar. Framing just happens up front. And it is a very important part of both the sales process and the relationship management process. Framing is important because it allows you to set the person that you're speaking to's expectations about what's going to happen. What are we going to talk about? When is this going to end? And when it does end, what are the next steps going to be? And that's key.
And one of the things that I've learned over and over again is that it's okay to make mistakes. And if you could talk about that too, sometimes the only way I learn how to improve my sales and what are the right questions is by sometimes just totally messing it up, where, like you said, you go out there and you ask some questions, or you're kind of getting these blank stares, that that's not the right process for your particular industry. So talk a little bit about, don't be discouraged if you don't get this on the first try.
Yeah, absolutely. The only people that aren't making mistakes are the people that aren't trying new things. So don't be afraid to try and step out of your comfort zone a little bit and work with someone that can help you with these things. You have to be comfortable with them at the end of the day. And if you're going out and doing things that you're not comfortable with and can't get to a decent level of comfort, it's not going to work, period. No matter how good what you're saying is, if you're not comfortable saying it, it comes across. There's a few keys to success when you talk about sales effectiveness and improving your sales. We talked about this in some of our earlier sessions, Randy, but I think it's worth reiterating here. People today want to do business with companies and professionals that have three things. They want to like them, they want to have respect for them, and they want to feel like there's some value in doing business with them relative to the cost. Something different than the other places that have the same product or service. Honestly, think about yourself as you watch this series of videos, trying to decide if you're going to participate in our group coaching program. Do you like me so far? Hopefully you do. Do you respect my opinions and thoughts on these topics? Have I brought up enough ideas and points that have demonstrated value to you and your business? If the answer to those three questions is yes, then great. I look forward to having you as part of our program. But if it's no, I can promise you won't be part of our next group. See? It's that simple. It's simple, but it's not easy.
That's definitely the truth. Simple, but not always easy. Let's go ahead and kind of tie this up. What do you think? What do you think makes someone an expert in sales?
I think it's having a good sales process. And I think that it's having that comfort level and confidence. Confidence is a big thing. When you talk to someone, if you're confident or not. Sometimes you'll hear athletes, entertainers talk about they'll only endorse things that they believe in. And I think that applies here too. You have to truly believe in what it is that you're doing and what it is that your business does. And you have to really in your heart believe that you are the best at what you do. And if you can get to that point and you can feel passionate about it, then that is really key. That and just having a process, knowing what you're going to say and being prepared are really the things that can help you become more proficient.
Mike, it's really interesting when you talk about these things for me, because my dad was the greatest salesman I ever met. He sold everything from Full of Rush, if any of you are old enough or have parents or grandparents old enough to remember that, to computer systems, to security systems, to jewelry. I mean, everything. And I really remember being a kid and kind of being out cold calling with him. He was one of those unique people that loved to cold call. And just about everything you talked about was what he mastered. getting people to like him and trust him, really listening to them as to what their needs were. How could he help them be better and be more effective and grow their business? What tools did he have in whatever he was selling at the time that could do that? And the other thing was he really cared about people. And I think sometimes today we get so caught up in the hustle and bustle that aspect of just caring about someone, like you said, what was that phrase that you used? People don't care what you know till they know that you care.
Right.
I mean, I think you say it's overused, and maybe it is, and maybe it's become cliched. But I think it's so important. We're all in such a hurry that sometimes just caring about someone, making them feel that they're listened to, that you really care about their business and what their needs are. I mean, that goes a really, really long way. And I can tell you firsthand from watching someone before there was any business coaches or sales training, he was just a natural. But all of these things that we've talked about, that's what made him the #1 salesman for any company that he was in. So these are not just line items on a page. And let's go ahead and bring these up. So, and I hope I hit the points that, that we talked about enough. I was trying to jot them down as Mike was talking. But, these are not just lines on a page. Make sure you're asking the right questions. Listen, listen, listen. I'll tell you another cliche. God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. You're supposed to listen twice as much as you talk. Without a sales process, you're at the mercy of someone. Think about a time when you went without a process and started talking to someone. They were totally gearing the conversation. You get so kind of lost in your own process when you don't have something to follow. Don't be afraid to fail. I mean, I just admitted it right here on camera. There have been times when I'm out there and I'm talking to people and I feel like I got deer in headlights. I'm asking the wrong questions. I'm not having the right conversation. But you know what? I walk away from that. I learned something. I tweak it. I perfect it. I make it better. Confidence. We all respond to people that are confident and believe that you're the best. When you believe that you have the best service, again, all these other things kind of come together, and that's kind of the glue that holds it. So Mike, as we leave this up there for our viewers, is there anything else you want to share with us about sales effectiveness?
I would just add, to me, the most important bullet on this page, Randi, is don't be afraid to fail. Mm-hmm. And don't do something once, have it not work, and then say, that doesn't work. I'm not going to do that anymore. You have to try things a good number of times. I mean, for something like this in a sales process, working with someone that can help you develop it, such as a coach, or trying it, 20, 25 times at least before you say, this doesn't work. Obviously, you can tweak it here and there, but don't scrap heap it after you do it once and it doesn't work, because the reality is there is no silver bullet. And there are things you can do around understanding personality types and how you can tailor your presentation based on the person that you're speaking to and what you believe their personality to be. But that's much more advanced. Let's master the basics first and think about what are we going to say, how are we going to say it, and what is the progression of the things that we want to talk about.
All right. Well, we also want to let you know that Mike would like to offer for you to take an assessment. He's actually compiled a relatively short, take you about 3 to 5 minutes to fill out, assessment of your business, really understanding certain elements that you need to be aware of and how you can improve upon them. And once you go ahead and submit that, Mike's going to actually reach out to you and give you a, kind of a report of the assessment that you submitted. Depending upon where you're watching this, you'll either click right on the screen now, or it might be below your screen. It'll take you to a page where you'll simply see a button that says Get Started Now. And again, takes you to a really quick process for you to get some more tools and some information. So I know Mike encourages everyone listening to go ahead and do that. Basically, you have nothing to lose. Any closing thoughts for us today, Mike?
No, thanks again for taking the time to spend with us here today. Go ahead and click on the survey. Look forward to seeing your responses, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Well, again, thanks for being here with us on our episode of Sales Effectiveness, a part of our GPS for Your Business program. I am Dr. Randi Ross, and along with your coach for today, Mike Nannini, we say thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode.